Okay, we ready?
We are ready. So for our next talk, we have none other than Jeffrey Morgenthaler talking about the design process and the scientific method. So it's a 2 for 1, a 3 for 1 actually.
Yeah.
Let's
We
hand
ready?
it over to Jeffrey.
Hi. Thanks for
Hi.
having me. Thanks for coming. My name is Jeffrey Morgenthaler. I am a bartender from Portland, Oregon, which is on the west coast of the United States. I guess I should use this, right? Yeah. I have been bartending since 1996 full time. I'm kind of a rare animal in this business in that I actually still tend bar. Um, that's me at my last bar, Clyde Common, that I was the bar manager of. I now own a bar in Portland called Pacific Standard. I also wrote a book called The Bar Book, and I wrote a second book called Drinking Distilled. What else do you need to know about me? I have had a website since 2004. I have been writing and talking and not talking. I don't really do a lot of talks like these. I get kind of nervous, which is like kind of weird for a bartender, right? Because like I have to like stand in front of hundreds of people every night and talk, and then the minute you put me in front of a bunch of my peers, I just like get super fucking nervous, and I'm like, I can deal with a bunch of idiots drinking, vodka sodas, but I like you guys. This is like very hard for me. I don't do this a lot. I usually only do it when Monica asks me, because you can't say no to Monica Berg. But it's really nice to be here. Like I said, I've been doing this for a really long time. Back when I started giving talks to bartenders, I spoke the second BCB ever in 2007, 2008. And you could get up in front of a group of bartenders and talk to them about how you should use fresh lemon juice in your bar program. And it would be like fucking mind-blowing, right? Like, oh my God, wow, I never thought about that. I do this less and less because I have been feeling for a long time like I don't know if I have that much to say, which is fine because I'm older and I try to be very supportive of the younger generations. They have more valid current things to say. And then it kind of hit me, when Monica was like, will you do a talk? And I was just like, totally. Fuck. What am I going to talk about? I can't tell these guys that they should use fresh lemon juice. I realized that I actually do have a background that is like somewhat special. So when I was right after high school, I went to City College. I got my great more microphones. I got my first degree in physics. I wanted to be an architect one day. Since I was like a little kid, I was just like, architecture is like going to be my thing. I knew I was going to go to architecture school. A very not that great career counselor said, if you're going to study architecture, you need to have a science background. And I was like, fuck, okay. Little did I know that I eventually go to a school that was an art school and not a science architecture school. But I did get my first degree in physics in 1992. I then went to architecture school and got my architecture degree in 1998. I started bartending in 1996. I would eventually come to not really enjoy working in architecture firms as much as I would enjoy being behind the bar. So I just sort of let it go, let the architecture, after a few years working in offices while tending bar. You don't need to know all this. Anyway, so I realized when I was talking to Monica that I actually do have something to talk about, and I want to share it with you today. And that's these two very different things. One being the scientific method, and one being the design process, and how we can use them in our bar programs. I sort of forget, it's so innate to me, I forget that I do this, the design process and the scientific method just sort of naturally, like almost every day, right? So I want to share with you today those two sort of methods, because I paid a lot of money for these degrees and I just want to give it away for free. So let's talk about scientific method. Scientific method is not, it's not witchcraft, it's not, there's a set of rules, right? It's a systematic approach to investing and understanding the natural world by asking questions, conducting experiments, and drawing conclusions based on evidence. I want to illustrate how the scientific method works by using an example, one of my favorite examples from a very good friend of all of ours, Mr. Dave Arnold. This is old. This is from 2009. I love this. I remember where I was when this came out. I was like, fucking finally, right? Someone said it. He wrote a couple of posts, number 1 and number 2, The Tales of Cocktail, The Science of Shaking. This is all about ice. And it's, you guys might be familiar with it now, you might not, but at any rate, Dave sort of figured it out using the scientific method. Sorry. I get so parched. So this is an experiment he did with Evan Clem and Alex Day, who you now know is back when Alex Day was a baby bartender from Death and Company. So here are the steps of the scientific method. I'm going to show you the 7 steps of the scientific method using Dave's blog post, his experiment, as examples of every single step. So, number 1, the first step of the scientific method, question. Dave said, when it comes to determining the final temperature and dilution of a shaken drink, does the type of ice in the shaker or the style of shaking actually matter? Is it important what size, what shape, and what sort of bullshit you do with your hands? Does that matter at all? Or is it just, there's a lot of pseudoscience in bartending, I've found. And I think Dave gets, you know, one of the reasons why Dave and I are friends is I think that he feels the same way. I won't get into it too far, but like, I've talked about this before. I gave a talk at BCB many years ago about just some of the bullshit that you see or hear in bartending because people don't like take the time to like investigate like Dave did. I point to this example. There was an example in the New York Times probably about 10 years ago. There was this whole article about this bartender in New York City. I won't say who it is, doesn't matter. And how serious this bartender took bartending, and they were just like more serious than your average bartender, right? It was all about like, you know, the details, the preparation. And one of the things that this bartender said was, I use the cold process. You guys familiar with the cold process of making syrup, simple syrup, as opposed to the hot process? It was a thing like 10 years ago where people believed, and this fucking dipshit believed, that if you took sugar and cold water and stirred them together and agitated them, that you would not have a cooked flavor in your simple syrup. That, yeah, right? And he said, I remember the quote like almost perfectly. It was like, I prefer the cold process because I like the fresh, uncooked flavor of sugar, right? I don't know if you guys have seen the sugar making process, but it starts with a boiler and then another boiler and then a boil and then it's boiled again and then they boil it again and boil it again. You know, it's just like, so anyway, I digress. There's so much fucking horse shit in bartending. And this is what I love about Dave, is Dave is a scientist, and Dave just said, you know, hey, does it matter? Everybody talks about, oh, you gotta have big cubes, you gotta have round cubes, you have to do the 3-point shake, you have to do a 4-point shake, you need to have this certain size of ice, this certain shape of ice. And Dave said, I don't know, let's actually fucking find out, right? So That's number one. Number two, do some research. This is another thing that a lot of bartenders don't do. A little research. Determine what others have already discovered about your question. There is no shortage of literature on the scientific, on thermodynamics, which is what ice is. So I didn't actually, I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I didn't really get prepared early enough to call or email Dave and ask him what research he did. But I'm going to assume that Dave did a little bit of research on thermodynamics, so you can tell. A hypothesis. So we have a question, right? The question is, does it matter? The hypothesis is, I don't think it fucking matters. It can be as simple as that. Experiment. So Dave, so crazy. I made some temperature recording shakers by soldering together thermocouple wire, lightly coating the end with heated conductive epoxy, drilling holes into some cocktail shakers, what a maniac, sealing the thermocouples inside with some steel-enforced epoxy. These were wired into a measurement computing 8-channel thermocouple. I don't even understand what half this shit means. It's a terrible picture, but like this is the shaker that he drilled a hole into with the wire connected to a computer so that he could perfectly measure the temperature of the cocktail inside the shaker. Again, he's a fucking maniac. And so these are these plot points. So the number 5 is analyze the data, right? Crazy Monkey is Dave, right? So yeah, Shitty Ice 1, Shitty Ice 2, Cold Draft 1, Cold Draft 2. I fucking love this guy. So Alex Day, Evan Clem, and then Crazy Monkey's Dave, just running around like a maniac, just like shaking like a literal crazy monkey. And then draw a conclusion. After looking at this data, does it look like there's a huge difference in the temperature or dilution based on any type of ice or any type of shake? No, not really. So, Dave drew the conclusion in terms of temperature and dilution, your style of shaking and the ice that you use probably doesn't matter. Like the time you do it probably doesn't matter. Evan Clem, who's actually my neighbor in Portland now, said it best when he said these results should set you free to develop your own style of shaking, and also and not worry about the ice. God, I had this. I'm like just thinking of it now. I've hosted one guest bartender in my bar ever. I just don't like guest bartending shifts. I just sort of not a big fan. I had Dale DeGroff, right? Dale DeGroff comes to my bar, right? He's going to do, and when Dale calls and says, I want to do a guest shift at your bar, you're like, whatever you want, Dale, right? You're the fucking literal king. But he comes, and like the staff is nervous, and I'm kind of nervous. I mean, Dale's a friend and a mentor, but like I'm still a little bit nervous. I want to make sure everything's perfect. He shows up, he's got his whole posse, and he walks up, good to see you, and then he looks down and he goes, this is the ice you're using? And I was like, I'll just go fuck myself right now. But had I known about this at that time, I would have said, Dale, it doesn't fucking matter. Number 7, and this is very important piece of the scientific method to communicate. I put this QR code if you guys want to see and read Dave's original blog post on his website on cooking issues. You can scan that. It is a fascinating article. He has a ton of fascinating articles about bartending and science on that website, and as well as cooking. I'm a big cook fan. So that's, and that's something that's like near and dear to my heart, is like just like sharing what you have learned. This has been the crux of my entire career for the past 20 plus years, is when I figure something out, I put it on my website and share it. And Dave does that too, which is another reason why I love Dave. I am probably going to skip ahead. Oh, not like that. Here's scientific method. Question, research, develop a hypothesis, experiment, analyze data, draw a conclusion, communicate your findings. So that's the scientific method. I really encourage you to go check out Dave's website. I really encourage you to go see that article. It's fascinating. If you're the sort of person that likes to read fascinating shit about bartending, you will love this article. Also, Dave's just got like a really great way of speaking that's not sort of like over everybody's head. You know, he's like really nerdy, but he's also just like a normal dude, which is another reason why I gotta stop talking about how much I love Dave. Like, jeez. Sort of sound like a fucking weirdo. I want to talk about the design process. This is a process. There are steps, just like the scientific method. They're very important. They're very helpful. And in 15 minutes, I'm going to try to give to you what I paid a lot of money for in school. I'm probably going to skip this and talk about this case study because, I'm really not super organized. Like Monica told me that this talk was supposed to be 30 minutes, and I couldn't remember if it was going to be 30 minutes or an hour, so I prepared an hour's worth of slides, and then I got here. I was like, oh, right, 30 minutes, okay. So we're going to skip. I'm not super smart, as you know. I want to share with you how I design new cocktails for my menu, because I have a very specific style of doing that. It doesn't come by accident. I do it intentionally. Like I said, I've been a bartender for a long time. I've been a bar manager for a long time. I don't do this as a fucking jerk off for my own ego. I do this because I want to make money either for myself or my staff or my boss. So when I design a new cocktail, it's not just because I think that something might be cool. I design a new cocktail because I want to do exactly, create something that is going to have a place on a menu that is for people to drink, right? Which was, the theme of the Grand Campari Hotel, is the theme of everything that we do, which is hospitality. I want to do it for people and money. So I want to share that process with you. And it goes a little something like this. In architecture, okay. So the first step in the design process is define the concept or the problem to be solved. What is the problem that we need to solve? Okay, seasonality, menu. We need a cocktail that satisfies the following components. We want to have something that has Latin American spirits. This is a fake cocktail that I have not made. It doesn't matter. Let's say that we have a restaurant that, or a bar that specializes in Latin American spirits, right? So we want to have something that utilizes Latin American spirits, has an element of seasonality. We need something tall and bubbly, right? Because we got a stirred cocktail, we got another stirred cocktail, we got a sour, we got a weird milk punch thing. We need something that's tall and effervescent because that's a slot that people enjoy, and we want to sell them drinks that they enjoy, right? And it should be bright and refreshing because we got heavy, medium heavy, and light. We need another light cocktail on the menu. That's I'm sure everybody in this room has been in that situation where you're like, what are we gonna make, right? In architecture, we use these things called bubble diagrams, and they're all about sizes and relationships of rooms to one another, right? So I would do this kind of stuff every single day. Like we're gonna have, we know that we need 3 bedrooms. We know that we need 1 restroom. We know that we need some stairs to get upstairs. We're gonna have a hallway. The hallway needs to open to this bedroom, this smaller bedroom, this bathroom needs to touch the stairs, right? That's how we do a bubble diagram, is the way, Jesus, sorry. The way that these elements interact with each other. This is how I design a new cocktail. So the second step in the design process is brainstorm and ideate, right? So, okay, what did we say? We want a Latin American spirits. seasonality, tall and bubbly, bright and refreshing. So, all right, we're gonna have a base spirit. We know that that's gonna be the main component of the drink, is gonna be the base spirit. It needs to be refreshing, so we're gonna have a sour element. That sour element is going to be supported by the sweet element. It's also gonna have a bubbly element because we decided that it's going to be tall and bubbly. And then something seasonal that interacts with the main base spirit. Number 3 in the design process, sketch and prototype. Okay, so base spirit, we just start writing down random shit, right? Is it gonna be pisco? Is it gonna be tequila? Is it gonna be rum? Could be cachaça. Just like throwing out some of the few Latin American spirits that we think of off the top of our heads. Sour, what do we do for sour? Pomelo, that's cool, that's weird, right? Grapefruit? Lemon's perfect in just about every cocktail. Lime, what are we gonna do for sweet? Agave, honey? What about for bubbles? You want to do a pet nat, maybe a cider, like a Basque Spanish cider to sort of like, you know, interact with the Latin American spirits that way? Is it soda? Is it ginger beer? I don't fucking know. This is going up in, let's say this is going up in September, October. Are we gonna do for seasonality, what do we do, like apricot, pear, maybe? I don't know, peach? We just start throwing these items, or these ideas at this bubble diagram. So this is the sketch and prototype step in the design process. Now we're iterating. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna do mostly tequila. I'm gonna do like a 15 mils of Sotol. So I'm gonna do like, we're gonna do like 45 mils of tequila and then just like a little bit of Sotol because I feel like that's gonna be super interesting. For the sour component, I'm feeling like pomelo sounds kind of good, right? A little bit of lime to bring that acidity up. For sweet, you know, I'm just feeling today like everybody would do agave. Let's do honey, fuck it. Like, let's get crazy with like a weird local honey. Apricot for that seasonality. It's like late summer. We want this cocktail, like a little apricot. Maybe it's apricot preserves, jam. Maybe it's apricot brandy. And then I just like to get super fucking weird. So let's use a rosé pet nat for our sparkling component. So now we've got this like tall, maybe sort of like French 75 variation that's tequila, Sotol, pomelo, lime, honey, apricot, rosé, pet nat. That's feeling pretty good. And then we'll just finalize the design, right? So we'll do 40 mils of tequila, 20 mils of Sotol, 20 mils of pomelo, 10 of lime, a little bit of 2-to-1 honey syrup, a little bit of apricot brandy, and you know, because we all know how to make a cocktail. Like everybody in this room probably saw this and said, "Oh, I could make that. Like I know what the recipe is for that, right?" Because we know how to make drinks because we're fucking bartenders, most of the time anyway. And then implement it and test it. You know, the example that I was going to talk about that I skipped ahead because I didn't go back and look at the email and see how long this talk was supposed to be, was with the Amaretto Sour. When I came up with the Amaretto Sour recipe, you know, I originally put it on my menu at Pepe La Moco in 2014, and I served it without brandied cherries, right? Because I'm like a kind of a cocktail purist, and I think a sour should just have lemon twist and that's it. And every single person that came into the bar was like, "Where's the cherry? Sour, where's the cherry?" And finally I was just like, well, fuck it. And now it's served with a cherry at the bar. And then launch, collect feedback and iterate, introduce it to the market, gather user feedback, and constantly make improvements post-launch to keep the design effective and relevant. Which is exactly how you design a building, honestly. Like, you know, they hammer it into you for 5 years in architecture school. So it's like second nature to me, but This is how you do, this is how you do that. Whether you realize it or not, this is how you do it. I hope everybody, I'm sure everybody in here follows Monica on Instagram, and I love watching Monica's stories and her posts because like I watch you do this almost every day, right? I'm like, God damn it, Monica's doing the design process. Like it's fucking beautiful. So that's the scientific method: question, research, develop a hypothesis, experiment, analyze that data, draw a conclusion, communicate your findings. And also, if this, number 6, doesn't agree with number 3, the develop a hypothesis, that's okay too. Like, in fact, that's a big part of the scientific method is if Dave had found out that, yeah, it super, super matters what kind of ice you use or what kind of shake you employ, then he would have reported that too, because either way, if this isn't, you have to detach yourself and your ego from this part, because if this doesn't agree with this, that's valid too. In fact, it's also just as important. Design process: define, brainstorm, sketch, feedback, finalize the design, implement and test, and launch, feedback, and iterate. And that's it. Woo! Thanks. You want me to go on?
I think there's a lot of questions coming your way, so I think it's
Oh,
fine.
shit,
But
okay.
I mean, certainly in the industry right now, there's a huge kind of discussion being had about creativity. First of all, is creativity important? And secondly, like if you don't have the methods, the processes to channel that creativity into something that can actually make you money, is it any point?
No, the answer is no.
I agree. I agree.
When you're running a business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've got to think about the business first.
And so, do everybody you work with agree with your methods, or do you have multiple methods within the team?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope they agree with the methods. Probably not always, and that's okay too. We do the things that we do for a reason, and if for some reason you don't like that reason, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm trying to run a bar here, and this is how I'm running the bar program, and if it's not your cup of tea, that's a bummer. I wish you would have maybe researched the place a little bit before you came to work for us. But it's fine.
Because earlier today we had this workshop with Dave and Don.
Yes, I know.
And part of the discussion that was being had was that disagreeing is okay.
Totally.
Having discussions, challenging the opinions within the team is okay as long as it's done in a respectful way.
Yeah, I would say that these are the two methods that I employ. They are not my methods, the design process and the scientific method. I didn't invent these. They are time tested. They have been methods for thousands and thousands of years. If you have a problem with the core of the program, which is the design process and the scientific method, sorry, it's not an ego thing for me. It's just like, this is what's been working for human beings for thousands and thousands of years, for better or for worse. And what can I say?
I agree, but what would you say to someone, for example, in a polite way, obviously, that says creativity should not be constrained? It should not have methods.
There shouldn't be a process of
Yes,
creativity.
it's like you create because you are creative. What would you say to those people?
I think that's a different side. I'm talking about design. What you're talking about, or what that theoretical person is talking about, is art. And those are two different things. Design is very intentional. There is a process to it. It is, like I said, time tested. You don't make a building most of the time as art. I use the design process. If you want to make art cocktails, we're not an art cocktail place. So feel free to go start your own bar program. We are a design cocktail place.
Exactly.
You know.
And I think also a lot of people, they don't understand how helpful these tools can be when you are under constant pressure to create, right? Because
Oh, it makes it so easy.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, because you don't have to. Art is just sort of like, you know, maybe I'll do this today. And design is like, we need this, and this. Let's just make it happen.
And designing a menu, designing a program, the purpose of it is to create a great space and place that people want to come back to, want to visit, have options.
Yeah.
And a designed menu has been designed specifically for consumers, and consumers are all different. So you're designing drinks that hit different markers, different flavor profiles, different
Yeah.
time of day.
I mean,
Whereas-
what we talked about was designing basically like a city, which is, or a building, which is a drink, but a city is a menu, right? Or a menu is a city. That's how you design. And believe me, like I almost went into public planning, like designing a city is no different than designing a cocktail menu, really, because it's a lot of things that have to interact and support and appeal to a large range of human beings. That's what we do, right?
Exactly. Do you have any questions?
I'm just excited. I was a little bit distracted with the audio and stuff, but I'm just excited that I got to be part of all of this. It was a really entertaining. Am I right? It was a very entertaining chat.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can't think of anything right now. I guess we could ask the crowd.
Well,
I'm a bit nervous.
do you think that designing menus today is, I mean, obviously it's different, but is it easier or harder than designing menus 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
In general, because of the climate, or in like given my experience, I would say like now it's easier for me because I have realized that the design process is such a big part of it, and so you know when we have to come up with a new drink on the menu, we have a full whiteboarding session, you know, where we draw bubble diagrams, and it's like it just kind of solves itself. I have found that it's so, once you know the design process and you know what the slots, right? Because every cocktail menu is or kind of should be the same, right? Like you got to have a refreshing one, you got to have one that's accessible to lots of people, you got to have the weird one, you got to have the spirit-driven one, you got to have the, you know what I mean? Like it's just like there's always slots on a menu. And I would say it's easier for me once I sort of like realized that what I was doing was based in my degree. It sort of, I was like, oh shit, I know how to do this. Fine, yeah. It used to be sort of hard when I was like, you know, trying to make art, you know, and now I don't try to make art. And now I just like make design. So I'd say it's a little bit easier.
Do you find so first of all, how often are you changing your menus? And secondly,
Not that often.
when you do, have you got some that you're just got to keep? You said it's a business. You've got to keep for the business sake, like the amaretto sour.
That's such a great question. It's, I mean, it's a totally off, like almost off topic. I personally, since I have been running bars in hotels for the past like 15 years, hotels have a clientele that, well, a great hotel bar should be, my thought is a great hotel bar should be 50% tourists or travelers, 50% locals. That's what makes a great hotel bar, right? If it's all locals, that means nobody wants to come from out of town and visit your bar. And if it's all tourists, that means nobody that lives there wants to visit your fucking bar. So when it's split down the middle, and I learned very quickly because I mean you've been to the Ace Hotel, like it was crazy back in the day, right? I'm now in the Kex Hotel, but when I was at the Ace, like at its peak, like you'd get people that would come back, you know, once a year. You get people that come every 5 years. You come people that come once a month. Once, you know, and they would throw their bags down, sit down at the bar, and they're like, I'm here. I booked my ticket. I'm staying at this hotel because I want to have the thing that I had the last time I was here and loved, right? Like, can you imagine if, like, at Pepe La Moco, I put the Amaretto Sour on for like 2 months and then took it off, and people were, you know, it's like, I just, like, you know, from a selfish standpoint, like, I just want to have the fucking question every night, you know, like, hey, you still make the Amaretto Sour? Oh, no, we're a seasonal menu. We don't do the Amaretto. I know you read about the Amaretto Sour in the New York Times or whatever. We don't do that anymore. Like, I don't want to have that question, right? So we try to keep our, like, greatest hits on, and then the ones that aren't necessarily, I mean, it's like, I'm not going to serve eggnog in the summer, right? People love our eggnog, but yeah, you got to have some sort of form of seasonality. So yeah, we sort of half and half.
Sorry, I was just looking at the questions from the feed if there was any questions.
Is there, okay, this is from Dom. Is there a right, and then in brackets, or wrong time to merge design process and use more artistic, creative methods?
Well, again, like, I think that there is I think that you're kind of like one or the other. Like, if you are the type of bar that creates artful cocktails, which I'm not saying is a bad type of bar. It's not the kind of bar that I run, but it's not a bad bar. I don't know how you would sort of do both, right? And I think that there's a lot of art in the design process. All of those little steps. Are we going to do tequila, sotol, pisco? Are we going to use pomelo? Are we going to use lime, lemon? I think that those are all artful decisions. But if you are going to be purely art, you probably aren't doing the design process, and that's fine, because that's a great kind of bar. And honestly, those bars and restaurants that create art as opposed to design cocktails, they're very important because they always push the conversation forward. That's not what I do, and also it would be hard for me to get up here and talk about how to make art, because there's no, like, process to art. It's, you make art, you know.
Any questions from the room?
Oh yeah.
So when you say you have the design process, and like the first step is always, okay, what do we need? What is missing on the menu? So do you have also like a specific process where you go like, okay, we have a feedback loop before we decide what is missing, or do you go just by feeling? Okay, we say.
I mean, I used to do a lot of feedback loop. Like, I used to get people involved. I have found that okay, so in the States we have this weird expression, and hopefully you'll get it. The expression is, a camel is a horse that was designed by a committee. Does that make sense? So I personally have gotten to the point where I know who I want feedback from and who I don't. Like, when you're doing design, I would imagine that everybody here sort of knows this innately, whether or not you think about it all the time, but like, there are people whose opinion you want to hear from, and people that, and this is, you know, I'm not saying that these people are, you know, that we don't like these people, but like, I have certain friends where I'm just like, we don't speak the same language. It's a very specific language. Design feedback is a very specific language. So when I was in school, I sought out those people in my class that I wanted, you know, that I respected their opinion, that would push me when I wanted to be pushed, that would not push me when I didn't want to be pushed. And I would sort of, and sometimes it's not always the same person, right? Sometimes it's, you know, this is a very specific type of drink. I have a vision in my head that I want it to be. So I'm going to go ask my business partner, you know, because he and I speak this weird sort of unspoken, nuanced, strange, crazy, beautiful language, you know, when you can like talk to somebody without even speaking to them, you know, where you can just sort of like see it in their face, you know, and you're like, I know it's too much lime juice, and they're like, You know, like it's that, and so so that's the whole process for me. I try to do it all myself because at the end of the day, I'm the person that I trust the most with cocktail shit, as we all should be. But then when I'm like stuck on a particular problem, and this is like not to answer your question at all. I was designing a line of canned cocktails, and my girlfriend is a designer. She's a wedding dress designer, so she's very familiar with the design process as well. And I told her I had like a deadline, right? It was like, oh, you need to have this done by Thursday. You need to figure out these canned cocktails. Canned cocktails also really fucking hard to do. So I was like, look, I will talk to you later. Like, I'm gonna go in my house, I'm gonna hole up in the lab, you know, and I'm just gonna try a million things, and I'm gonna just like get weird and try to figure it out. And I was at this place, I should have included in this. I was at this place where I was like, I don't know if I can do this, right? Like when I got the offer to do the canned cocktails, I went to the liquor store. I bought every single canned cocktail on the market, right? Put them back. They probably thought I was a fucking lunatic, and put them in the back of my truck, drove them back to Portland, and tried them. And I was like, oh, these are shit. This will be super easy, like, you know. And then I actually tried to do it, and I was like, oh no, this is like really fucking hard. So she texts me a couple days in while I'm like in the lab, which is just my kitchen. And she says, how's it going? And I was like, I don't think I can do this. And she sent me this like meme, and it was the whatever 4 or 5 stages of the design process. And step 1 was, I'm awesome. Step 2 is, this is awesome. Step 2 is, this is shit. Step 3 is, I'm shit. Step 4 is, this might be okay. And then step 5 is, this is great. And I was like, she was like, you are here in the you are shit. Or I am shit. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question and letting me not answer it at all. Appreciate it.
I use this one as well. When you're like almost to the point where you're like jumping off.
Oh yeah,
into the abyss, and
you have that moment where you're like, I'm fucking terrible at this.
yes,
I'm awful. I don't know. I couldn't bartend my way out of a wet paper bag.
yes,
You know, and what do we do to console ourselves? We get on Instagram and we see all of the people doing amazing stuff, and we're like, well, yeah. This all confirms it. I'm fucking terrible at bartending. I'm terrible at my job.
yes. But I do think that, well, I share your appreciation for methods and systems and processes, and I do think that having templates, your own developed templates, helps you being creative in a productive way.
Yep.
So that you can, when you are in this I'm shit time period, you know that there's a light at the end of this tunnel. You just need to.
You hope there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
yes. Otherwise, you just go and have a shot of Campari soda, and then you just like.
Yeah,
come back from
which.
it. No, I'm joking. There's no more left. Yeah, no. But so, for example, what would you say to someone who is unsure of what to do, like designing their first menu, designing their first drink, getting to that milestone of having something that is theirs on a menu, ordering things? How can they proceed? Like ask for help, go back, read something.
Follow the design process, I would say. I mean, that's my only advice, right? And that's what got me out of my canned cocktail like pit of despair was I was like, oh, right, follow the rules, you know, go through the process. I was sort of starting to stray, because even, you know, it's like, I know how to do this stuff, but like I stray and I'm just like, maybe it's salt, maybe it's, you know, it's just like, and that's why I wanted to give this talk today, because like, that's the thing that saved me. That's the thing that like, I believe, will save you is following those steps. And like I said, like those aren't my steps. I didn't invent any of that. Like that is the design process. And so I would just say, like, you know, have a workflow chart that
And
you
sometimes be patient, and then the last 2%, that's the hardest part, no? Because that's
do. Being
where,
patient for me is the hardest part.
yes, and see it through, see it through.
Yes,
Yes.
and see it through for sure.
Really quick one. If you are 95%, right? Your teams come together. You've done the bubble thing. Everything's there. The menu's just about there, but there's a couple of drinks that could probably use a little bit more time. Would you release it, and knowing that you can fine tune them once a few people have tried them, you can
Yeah,
fine
in
tune?
fact, that's
so you have to be a perfectionist.
No, that's a very valuable. Like I was talking about the Amaretto sours. Like I was like, no cherries. Cherries are fucking bullshit, man. Lemon only. And people were like, we want cherries. And I was like, okay. You know, like I think it's okay to tweak. And you know, when we launched our menu at Pacific Standard, I had this idea for a whiskey sour that was a stone fruit sour. And we used a teaspoon of apricot preserves, right? So put it, egg white, lemon, whiskey, sugar, teaspoon of preserves, and then you shake it. And then about 6 minutes later, the whole thing separates. So the bottom is clear and the top is like full of this like pectin fucking goo, like pectin egg white goo. And the guests were like, I don't want to drink this. Like, you know, it tastes good, but it looks fucking weird. And I was like, you know, and so we were like, that's not working. We're just gonna switch it mid-shift and do apricot brandy instead. Doesn't separate, tastes the same. It's great. So yeah, I think, you know, you always and that's such an important, such a great question, because it's such an important part of the design process is listening to feedback and not being so egomaniacal that you're like, this is my thing and I'm gonna die on this hill and I'm never gonna change it because everybody's a fucking idiot except for me. We're only gonna do this one thing. Like, being a great bartender is like listening to the guests, listening to what people want, and adapting and changing, right? Am I wrong?
Oh, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Like, unlike a lot of people, I really like the quote, "The guest is always right."
Yeah.
But I don't read it as the guest is always right, like what they say is gospel. I read it as
The
hospitality.
guests will tell you what they want.
Yeah,
yeah.
or like I read it as hospitality is seeing someone else's point of view seeing from someone else's point of view, even if you know it to be wrong. So like, if the guest is always right, they believe they're right.
Yeah.
They might not be, but they believe they're right. So
Yeah.
you know, if enough
There's
of them
always going to be
believing
one
the same
asshole
thing,
that tells you, right? But when it's like 3,000 assholes, you got to listen to the assholes
Yeah.
because you might be the asshole.
yeah, exactly.
The one.
Yeah. Oh shit, is it me?
All right, I think with that, we will take a break from the live stream because we are going to come back in 8 minutes with our last and final talk of the day. So,
Who is the last and final talk of the day?
ooh,
Surprise?
no.
It's 19-time world champion flair bartender Christian Delpesh.
Legend.
Yeah.
Legend. Awesome.
And
Thanks for coming, you guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No, thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks to you guys.